Good morning, team. Well, hey, I'm going to do my best to fill in for Nick while he's on vacation. And I know I will not be near as entertaining as Nick, but I'm filling in nonetheless. So um, I just want to share with you just a little bit of some thoughts I've had recently. One of the things I love to do is I love to landscape. My wife and I, that's what we do after work and weekends, and spend time in the yard. And, you know, we have some bunny rabbits here that have made their home under our deck at the beginning of the year. And yet, we also have some hawks. And those hawks and bunnies don't get along really well. And so there's been evidence in different parts of our yard that life for those bunnies has been pretty difficult. They didn't make it. And honestly, I'm not disappointed because they're eating, the heck out of our shrubs and stuff that we planted. So, hey, they're cute until they start eating your stuff. But life is risky for those bunnies living here. Then we've got this one area over here in our yard that had some Colorado mountain ash that were planted. And because of the incredible wet, heavy snow that we got twice this spring, we lost both of those trees. Beautiful trees. They were. Now they're twigs, just dead. Life is risky. And it hit me. Life is risky. And, then thinking about COVID-19, who'd have thought in December, hey, by the way, there's going to be a global pandemic and nearly 400,000 people are going to lose their life. That's what's happened with COVID. Life is risky. And then, of course, my heart as yours, my mind as yours has been mulling over everything that's happened recently with the death of George Floyd and all the history that has built up to this point. And I think life is risky. And then I thought about just this last L10 that we had for the ELT this Monday. And we had a pretty robust discussion, and it was, hey, should we? And if so, how should we address what's going on? Should we mix business and personal by addressing, from a leadership perspective, the civil unrest and the brutality and all that's happened? And it was a pretty robust discussion and a difficult one, but the decision was made to, yes, let's address it. Let's lean into this situation. But that's risky. Communication is very risky. It can be misconstrued, misunderstood. Communication's risky, and it was risky for Nick to speak up. And yet, it's also very risky, and maybe much more so, for many others to speak up in protest and all that's been happening. Maybe risky for you in the conversations you've had and speaking into this situation. Communication is difficult and it's risky. And I was asking myself, why? Why is it so difficult? And this is just my perspective. Doesn't mean it's true. But one of the reasons why communication is so difficult and risky is because we come from our own perspectives. And for goodness sake, that's the only perspective we can have. We have different contexts and different experiences in life, and that causes us to look at situations through our lens. I was born in 1965, a long, long time ago. I was born in the 60s, raised in the 70s. Pretty tumultuous time. I was born in the Midwest. I had nothing to do with any of that, but that's my context. My parents were divorced when I was 4 years old. I was raised by a single father who raised 3 boys on a teacher's salary. My dad, I think he made around $30,000 at the time as he raised 3 boys. My mom wasn't much a part of my life. And guess what? That's my context. My first 4 years of school, first grade through fourth grade, was in a town called Danville, Illinois, and it was pretty racially diverse. And then I remember as a fourth grader, for some reason, I got moved to a new school. I was going to Fairchild, and then they moved me to Cannon. I didn't know why. I was just in fourth grade. Years later, I realized it was desegregation. And that's my experience. Then my dad got a job out in the country where I grew up, really, from fifth grade all the way through high school. I lived at Rural Route 1, Box 54, Oakwood, Illinois. It's nowhere. Cornfields, bean fields, soybeans, houses about a half a mile apart at most. And you know what? It was all 100% white, Anglo-Saxon. That's it. But it was my context. And communication is difficult because each of us bring our own context and our own experience. And it's natural. But I think that what we can bring, even with our own individual context and experience, is empathy. And I think that's what I'm striving to bring in my relationships and understanding is empathy. And what is empathy? It's hearing with an intent to listen. To really hear and listen. It's to withhold judgment so you can really hear. You can really understand. Don't pass judgment, just understand. As Stephen Covey said in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand and then be understood. That's what empathy does. Doesn't pass judgment, but listens. Doesn't necessarily mean you agree with what's being said or have the same views, but you listen. You're empathetic, and it's trying to step into that person's experience. And if all of us can try to step into another's experience, even though it's really impossible, we can try. And that can bring greater empathy and greater understanding. You know, this Friday, I'm having a good friend, my wife and I are having a good friend over for a barbecue. We're going to grill out right here, some chicken on the grill, and a bunch of veggies, and then we're going to chat. He's black. His wife, I believe, is Indian. And we're good friends, but we're going to go deeper than we've ever gone. I'm going to really seek to listen and understand and try to enter into his experience. His parents were born in North Africa. They moved here. He was raised in Atlanta and has moved here about 1.5 years ago when we became friends. And I want him to understand my experience. We're going to seek empathy with one another, seek understanding. You know, it's been said that there are 3 great realities: faith, hope, and love. And that the greatest of the greatest realities is love. I want to close by reading just a quick quote from a book I'm reading called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. The author says this, excuse me, every day I put love on the line. There is nothing I am less good at than love. I am far better in competition than in love. I'm far better at responding to my instincts and ambitions to get ahead and make my mark than I am at figuring out how to love another person. I am schooled and trained in acquisitive skills, in getting my own way. And yet, I decide every day to set aside what I can do best and attempt what I do very clumsily. Open myself to the frustrations and failures of loving, daring to believe that failing in love is better than succeeding in pride. I know talking about love from the HR leader, talking about it in a business context may seem a little syrupy. But I believe if we can make that effort to love in empathy, we can make a difference. I love being a part of this team. It's a difficult road for all of us. And I hope that we can travel it more collaboratively, more transparently, more connected, more supported than ever before. Thanks. Have a great day.